So our State of the 49ers series continues. We started with special teams. We're going in reverse order this year. And today we move to an exciting portion of this football team just because of how much evolution we've seen recently, the secondary, the DB position. So State of the 49ers, DBs, look at that picture. You can see Talanoa Hufanga, Jimmie Ward, and Emmanuel Moseley against the Rams. That's back in week 5 of this season. Actually, I'm trying to think, did Jimmie Ward play in week 5 of this season, or is this might be a picture from the 2021 season on Monday night, because I don't think Ward was back yet for the Rams game. Yeah, so this might be from 2021. Anyway, the headline counts. State of the 49ers DBs, INT happy 2022, featured improvement on the back end. By INT happy, I mean that the 49ers led the NFL with 22 interceptions this year. That's a massive deal considering where this team had been. In 2018, the 49ers had 2 interceptions all year. That set an NFL record in a bad way. No team had ever only had 2 interceptions all season, made even worse by the fact that 2018 was already in a pass-happy era. So the 49ers unable to pick passes off. I mean, it had dogged them for years. In 2021, yeah, they had a few more picks, but Jaquiski Tartt dropped what should have been a pick that might have won the NFC Championship game. So a lack of interceptions was a big-time 49ers issue in every Shanahan season up until this one, where the 49ers led the NFL. Just take a look at this graphic. It's part of the State of the 49ers piece. This is 49ers interception generated efficiency year by year. So this is expected points generated by interceptions in the right-hand column. Expected points generated by the pass defense as a whole is in the left-hand column. Obviously, those two are correlated, but this is not only measuring the 22 interceptions, it also measures the impact of those interceptions. So if you have a pick 6, it's going to generate more expected points. If you have an interception deep in an opponent's territory, it's going to generate more expected points than an interception when the opponent is further down in your territory. Although you could probably generate some expected points by the fact that a pick that saves a touchdown would help you put the offense into a position where they're not generating as much. Anyway, the expected points are a good, sophisticated way of measuring impact. The raw number of 22 interceptions can only tell you part of the story, and this is going to tell you a little bit more. So look at the right-hand column first here. Interception, expected points added, and the NFL rank. In 2019, the 49ers added 65.36 expected points with picks, interceptions. That ranked number 5 in the league. In 2020, pass rush dipped off, plus 54.2. That was number 17 in the NFL for the 49ers. In 2021, 49ers did not do well at all in the interception generation game, especially when it came to picking off passes that mattered. They ranked near the bottom, number 29 in the league. They only picked up a total of 33 points on the season through interceptions, expected points. That number nearly tripled here in 2022, plus 90.69. So nearly plus 91 expected points through interceptions for the 49ers. Number 2 in the NFL. Their entire pass defense, if you went by EPA per play, also number 2 in the NFL. The year after the pass defense was number 21 and surrendered negative 60.5 expected points, the 49ers were plus 53. You can do the math. That is a 113-point swing. 113 points over, this was 17 regular season games. That's going to win you a few games. That's going to turn a few losses into wins for the 49ers. As you can see, they were in the red in 2021, back into the blue here in 2022. Was it the best pass defense they've had in the Shanahan era? Technically, no. 2019 plus 66.81. But I think this was clearly the best secondary the 49ers have had in the Shanahan era, because the 49ers ranked number 2 in EPA per play on pass defense, despite having a significantly worse pass rush than they had in 2019. Number 2 pass rush in 2019 as far as sack rate, number 16 in 2022. Pressure rate down to number 13. The pass rush was objectively worse this year, yet you still saw the pass defense register number 2 across the board. That leads me to the question on the screen. Is this now a rush, or is this no longer a rush over coverage defense? Is this a coverage over rush 49ers defense? I think there's a strong case to be made that it's at least a balanced 49ers defense. And the reason that this is important is that, during the early parts of the Shanahan-Lynch era, the 49ers were just so proudly beating their chest about how it was a rush over coverage unit. You'd have Nick Bosa, D Ford, DeForest Buckner, hell, Ronnie Blair. I mean, that was a loaded defensive line to add in 2019. And they talked about how that was the driver of the defense. I talked to Richard Sherman several times. I wrote about this. I asked Sherman, what's the key to the improved pass defense from 18 to 19? Sherman said the pass rush. Sherman didn't even give credit to his own secondary. He said this was about the pass rush. And it was. The 49ers built their defense on the principles that John Lynch had picked up with Tampa Bay. When you had Warren Sapp bearing in on quarterbacks, the rush fueled the coverage with Tampa Bay back in the day. And now the 49ers, when you saw Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch build this team, Lynch and Shanahan actually sat down in 2017 when they both took their respective jobs, coach and GM, with the 49ers. And they philosophically agreed they were going to build this team with a pass rush first. They figured if the pass rush can crunch opposing quarterbacks, make them uncomfortably release the ball in less than 2.5 seconds, the secondary will look a whole lot better. That's what you call rush over coverage. Now, the other end of the philosophy is coverage over rush, and that's locking opponents down so tightly with your defensive backs that you buy time for your pass rush to get to the quarterback. So coverage over rush would mean stronger DBs. Rush over coverage would mean stronger defensive linemen. Now, I put coverage over rush defense with a question mark because it is a legitimate question. If the 49ers were in the middle of the pack as far as pass rush this year, but number one in interceptions, the DBs are doing something right. You could make the case that the 49ers shifted into coverage over rush this season. Now, you can make that case, but I wouldn't say that it is that definitive and that conclusive. I think the 49ers have simply moved into a more balanced unit, and I do think it's a big-time priority for them to knock that pass rush back toward the top of the league next year. They're going to want to have some movement in that pass rush in the right direction next season. I think it's going to require better pass rushing from the interior defensive tackle position. I think they're going to have to find some capable bodies there. And I think they're going to want to make sure that they fortify Nick Bosa with the proper bookends. Charles Emmanuel was good this year. After that, it really fell off. Sansa Mebicom a little bit above average. Drake Jackson hit the rookie wall. The 49ers need to do better at the edge rushing spot opposite Bosa, and they need to do better on the interior. But we're here to talk about the coverage, and the coverage will benefit if the 49ers pass rush gets better next year. But the coverage was already strong for the 49ers in this past 2022 season. Again, they led the NFL in interceptions, 22 interceptions in 2022. This came off of training camp where they had 20 or 21 picks. Everybody was saying, well, that's only because Trey Lance is playing quarterback. And obviously with a first-time starter back there in training camp against a good defense, they're going to have a lot of interceptions. Just wait until the regular season. Those picks will fall off. They didn't. The 49ers continued intercepting passes over the course of the regular season, and that spells a bright future for the secondary, especially since the new defensive coordinator, Steve Wilks, has a DB background. That's really interesting when we talk about the rush over coverage, the coverage over rush shift in focus. Well, the 49ers are going to let Chris Kasarik, the D-line coach, who's architected a great pass rush for the 49ers in recent years, they're going to let him continue to do whatever he needs to do with the defensive line. But the new DC, instead of having a linebacker's background as DeMeco Ryans did, they're moving it out of the front seven. Steve Wilks has a DB background. All right, so I'm going to take the link to this 49ers State of the Union piece. This is the state of the DB position. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it into the chat section. And you can also check that out in the description section. Make sure you subscribe to The Athletic. Check it out. I'm going to be showing some of the graphics here in a second on the video. So these articles that go through every single position group do go in depth into the 49ers situation across the entire roster. So all that being said, let's go, and delve deeper into some of these players. The Jimmie Ward question is one that I obviously talk about in the headline of this video. And, I should open up the 49ers depth chart with this video so we can take a look at what they're looking at as far as the secondary goes. The 2023 49ers 90-man depth chart. You can see on the text title below, I wrote that Jimmie Ward ties right into the Diamador Lenoir and Emmanuel Moseley situations. Well, what are those situations? In summary, the 49ers only have one of those three players currently under contract for 2023. Ward is a pending free agent, so he's not under contract. Moseley, coming off the torn ACL, is a pending free agent, so he is not under contract. So you look at the secondary, which is right here, highlighted in blue. Only Diamador Lenoir of those three players is under contract. I have the starters if there were a game today to start the 2023 season with the players under contract. Obviously, you have Charvarius Ward, who, by the way, worth every penny. 49ers exited last season having surrendered a league-high 21 defensive pass interference penalties. That number dropped to 7 this season. They couldn't cover Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. in the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game. They needed to sign a cornerback for big money. They signed Charvarius Ward for big money. He's been worth every penny. So you see Ward, as I zoom in here for you, he's going to be your starting cornerback on one side. Diamador Lenoir is the starter on the other. And, we're going to talk about Lenoir in a second, but boy, did he improve over the course of this year. Jimmie Ward, unsigned for next year. So I've moved Samuel Womack III into the nickel position. I don't know if that's something the 49ers would actually want to roll with, though. That's what I'm going to talk about, potentially moving Lenoir. All-pro Talanoa Hufanga, one of the strong safety spots. And because Tashaun Gipson has not been re-signed yet, he's actually pondering retirement. Tashaun Gipson's spot at the other safety spot has been replaced by George Odom. You have depth here. Ambry Thomas, Trace Swilling recently signed this week. A.J. Parker, another future reserve deal. Quantrez Knight, Swiss Army knife, on the practice squad last year. 49ers extended him into the offseason. And Taylor Hawkins, another practice squatter, extended into this offseason for the 49ers. They still need some more capable NFL experienced players to make this happen, which is why I put the question here, or the statement up on the screen. Jimmie Ward, if the 49ers do not re-sign him, this spot right here that Samuel Womack is slated into at that nickelback position, that spot, I think, could be Diamador Lenoir's, because Emmanuel Moseley ties into this position too. Moseley was really good through, 4 or 5 weeks for the 49ers before he tore his ACL in Carolina. It was Moseley and Ward to begin the season at corner. If Moseley comes back, potentially at a discount because of the ACL tear, and if he comes back healthy enough to start this next year, if you're the 49ers, you can move Lenoir down into nickelback, and you don't need Jimmie Ward to come back. That's the beauty of it here, because they were actually planning on Lenoir being a nickelback this past season until the injuries, especially to Emmanuel Moseley, thrust him to the cornerback position. It was injuries to Moseley, and then Ambry Thomas also dealt with injuries this year, but definitely it was a second-year regression for Ambry Thomas. So we'll see if he has a third-year bounce back. That would be certainly nice for the 49ers and their outside cornerback depth. But, with Jimmie Ward, he came on his Instagram Live last week. I remember that. He talked about the fact that he thought the 49ers wanted him to play nickel because nickelbacks don't make as much as safeties, and he was in a contract year. There could be some truth to that. We haven't been able to confirm or deny it, but Jimmie Ward was certainly convinced that that was some of the 49ers' intentions there. If that's the case, Jimmie Ward, who actually switched to nickel successfully this year and got better over the course of the season, he might try to sign elsewhere for a safety contract. He deserves it to himself, to his family, to sign for as much money as possible. And if the 49ers are really eyeing Jimmie Ward as a nickelback and he wants to play safety elsewhere for more money, all power to him. But if that's the case, then the 49ers are going to have to run some of the shuffle that I just showed. Now, that will only be the case, in my opinion, if the 49ers manage to re-sign Tashaun Gipson Sr., who might be the most underrated player in the National Football League. Let's take a look at the performance of the 49ers defensive backs. Blue is good. Red is bad. This is pass yards allowed per snap, rating allowed into coverage, missed tackle percentage. So you have a lot of pass defense snaps, and you have an overall defensive pass defense stats and an overall defensive stat in missed tackle percentage. We talk about Tashaun Gipson. He's at the very bottom of the screen here for you. Blue across the board. You want this to be blue. He gave up a 63.2, 53.0 rating into his coverage and a 2.9% missed tackle rate. When I talk about underrated, well, let me tell you this. The rating that Gipson allowed, the passer rating that he allowed into his coverage, ranked number 2 of all safeties in the NFL. And the missed tackle percentage that he allowed, 2.9%, ranked number 1 of all safeties in the NFL. So in 2 separate metrics, Tashaun Gipson ranked number 1 and number 2 in the National Football League at age 32. And nobody's really talking about this guy. It was a sensational year. He kicked Jimmie Ward right out of his safety spot, put Jimmie Ward into that nickelback spot. Ward initially didn't really want to play nickelback, but Kyle Shanahan said, would you rather ride the bench? Because Tashaun Gipson's playing so well next to Talanoa Hufanga, that's the other option. So Jimmie Ward went to nickel, improved over time. There was a lot of drama, really over nothing, made about that by some of the media. But at the end of the day, that's what the 49ers had to do because Gipson was a top 2 efficiency safety in both tackling and coverage, and Jimmie Ward was the best remaining option for the 49ers to flex down into that nickel spot where he effectively replaced K'Wan Williams. Now, you then looked at the outside cornerback positions for the 49ers. Yes, Deommodore Lenoir struggled a bit over the course of the year. His pass yards allowed per cover snap were a little bit below average, so a little bit more than you'd want to see him give up over 688 snaps. But the rating into his coverage was good because passer rating includes interceptions, and his missed tackle percentage was a little bit below league average, which is also what you want. So Deommodore Lenoir improved, I think, markedly over the course of his time starting this season to the point where in the NFC Championship game against Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, 2 really, really good wideouts, the 49ers gave up, their outside cornerbacks gave up only 2 catches for 16 yards. So that should give the 49ers confidence heading into next year with Ward and Lenoir as their starters. I'm not saying that the 49ers are going to want to go with Ward and Lenoir as their starters. Charvarius Ward, for sure. They paid in the big money. Lenoir, you might want to slide down into nickel. You'll see what happens with Emmanuel Moseley. You see if you draft or sign somebody else. But if it has to be Charvarius Ward and Deommodore Lenoir, cornerbacks 1 and cornerback 2 at the season opener in 2023, I think the 49ers would feel quite all right with that, especially in a situation like this one where Steve Wilks has a DB background. The defensive coordinator, I think, has a really good chance to make the 49ers secondary even better with some of his pattern matching coverages, make things a little bit more complex, really get the 49ers on track to continue the ascent of that run defense. Let's put this back up here for you. Again, you can go to the link in the description. This is the state of the DB piece. Blue is good. Red is bad. I divided this by positions. The top third is cornerbacks, ranked against other cornerbacks. So the color coding corresponds to that. The middle third is nickelback, and the bottom third is the safety position. I'm going to erase this Steve Wilks banner right now so you could see the whole thing. Look how much blue there is in the safety position. The only weakness of the safety position is Talanoa Hufanga's missed tackle rate, which was too high. This chart is really neat because it shows you the strengths and weaknesses of all these players. So the red here, Hufanga's got to get that missed tackle rate under 10% next year. And he's working on it. I mean, Hufanga is the most high-energy guy. A cool story. Tashaun Gipson right underneath him, who was one of the best safeties in football this year. Gipson was a Pro Bowler in 2014 when he played for the Cleveland Browns. It just so happens that Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator of that team. That actually was one of the main reasons why the 49ers linked up with Gipson in the first place this year, because Shanahan remembered Tashaun Gipson from his Pro Bowl season back in 2014. It's a long time ago. 9 years ago at this point, right? 8 years ago when the season started. So that was near the beginning of Tashaun Gipson's career. Now he's 32 years old. He's going to be 33 next year. And, you know, nobody knew what the 49ers were going to get from this guy. And I don't know if he knew what he was going to get from himself either. He was talking about the fact that they signed him right before week 1, that he had never been on the couch for that long through training camp. It didn't seem like anybody wanted him until the 49ers finally did. So obviously you had an aging player show up at the team facility. He was going to be thrust into a starting role based on the initial look that the 49ers got at him. And he had to survive a 20-game marathon. And that happened. Tashaun Gipson survived the 20-game marathon. And the cool story is that he credited Talanoa Hufanga, who is 10 years younger than him, for allowing him to unlock that fountain of youth. How neat is that? Two guys, 10 years apart, credits Talanoa Hufanga for unlocking the fountain of youth. After the 49ers won the NFC Championship against Seattle, maybe Mike can download this video. Mike, if you have it, can you grab this? We could play it in a little bit. We can play the interview with Talanoa Hufanga and Tashaun Gipson side by side at the NFC West Championship locker room celebration. It was in Seattle in the locker room. When a reporter came up to Hufanga and requested an interview, Hufanga refused to do the interview without Tashaun Gipson present, and then Gipson refused to do an interview without Talanoa Hufanga present. It was the ultimate display of camaraderie and teamwork between two players 10 years apart in age. I thought that it was a really, really cool moment for the 49ers, illustrating what this locker room was like from a personality perspective. And that obviously translated to the field, because if you look here, the safety position was just awesome this year. Even when they went to the reserves and Charvarius Ward and George Odom, they stayed good. Now in the middle, nickelback, you see a little pink for Jimmie Ward. That means he was slightly below average here, but he wasn't terrible, and the missed tackle rate was still good. And remember, Jimmie Ward was A, playing out a position that he was used to, and B, a lot of his early time at nickel came with a club on his hand. I mean, he toughed it out through a broken hand, and he played with a club on his hand. Ward got better as this season went along, and I think he helped himself as far as versatility goes here in this upcoming free agency period, because, yeah, he is an older player, but he has proven that he could play anywhere. I mean, he's played outside corner. He's played nickelback now. He's played safety for the 49ers. So Jimmie Ward, I think, really showed something this year as far as the progress that he made to deliver good, solid overall numbers, not too far below average in these two, and they were above average in secondary splits in his first season in the NFL, really at nickelback. I know that he dabbled in it a little bit earlier, but the league has changed since then. Some of the best receivers line up at nickel, like Cooper Kupp, over 50% of the time. Look at the cornerback position. Well, there's a little bit more red here, but the majority of the red is amongst the reserves: Samuel Womack, Janoris Jenkins, and Ambry Thomas. When you look at the starters, well, Charvarius Ward in the blue across the table. Ward had the second lowest missed tackle rate of any cornerback in football, which is super, super impressive. Only missed one tackle all season. Lenore got better as the season went along. Moseley, really good in coverage. The one weakness with Moseley here is this 21.4% missed tackle rate. I remember a really costly one on the goal line against Denver. This was Denver's own goal line. So the Broncos were backed up. They had Russell Wilson hand off, and Moseley was trying to seal the edge. And a good tackle there right at that edge would have set the 49ers up for potential safety or made Denver punt from their own end zone. Moseley missed the tackle. Denver punted. Denver started driving. They didn't punt. They started driving, and that was really a damaging portion of that game. So Moseley's tackling has to get better, but his coverage was exemplary this year. Hope you enjoyed that table, the look at the 49ers DB coverage performance this past season. It was really, really good stuff. Again, they led the NFL with 22 interceptions on the year. I'm going to go ahead and put up the article again here up on The Athletic, and then probably going to move to some questions. Be sure that you do check it out. There we go. Make it nice and big. And why don't we say subscribe to The Athletic? We're going through this position group by position group. Ooh, some good water. That tastes nice. 223 of you. Not as many viewers as we were getting late in the season, but I get it. Right now is a little bit of a dead period. A lot of 49ers fans, I think, are avoiding reading about football, especially before the Super Bowl. They don't want to hear about the Eagles. They don't want to hear about the Chiefs. Nothing, some of the coaching stuff is going to change. I mean, we saw Steve Wilks get hired. We'll see if Bobby Slowick, 49ers pass game coordinator, gets hired as Houston's offensive coordinator in the coming days. But for the most part, it's really going to get turning and churning for the 49ers in about a month, in March. March is the time when we will see more progress as far as players being signed. Free agency opens. some guys might get cut around the league, and you can get a head start on signing players before free agency opens if a player is cut early. But for the most part, the floodgates of everything are going to open next month. So we'll take care of the 49ers coaching staff turnover before we move into that phase of the offseason come March. It's now February 8th. All right, I'm ready to answer some questions. Why don't we check it out? Head into the comment section. Wade into the comment section at your own peril. People are arguing about Jim Harbaugh. Oh, it's Mike. Great. I wonder what Mike's responding to. I'm not reading what he's responding to. I just got in, but we'll read what Mike said. Harbaugh inherited elite talent. Kyle came in with the worst talent in NFL. Was in the Super Bowl in year 3 of his tenure. Has been to 3 NFC championships. Relax, y'all. Stop being a bunch of crybabies. Let's clap for Mike. Everybody clap for Mike. I don't even want to read the comments that instigated that, but he's right. The 49ers, Jed York has told the story. This is a good story, by the way. Jed York has told this story. He said, he's interviewing head coaching candidates in late 2016, early 2017, probably 17. And he, wanted honesty from the head coaching candidates that were coming through on the interview circuit. And in the search of honesty, he asked all of them, what do you think of our roster here with the 49ers? And the 49ers were coming off a 2-14 season. They weren't good in 2016. And supposedly, a lot of the candidates tried to kiss Jed York's ass and were just, oh yeah, it's a decent roster. I can work with this. I can do all that. Kyle Shanahan gets in there for his interview, and Jed York says, what do you think of this roster? And Kyle Shanahan says, this is the worst roster I've ever seen at a professional level. Boom. He was hired a few days later. So there you have it. Honesty can be the best policy. Kyle Shanahan did not beat around the bush regarding the challenge that it would take to turn the 49ers around. But his honesty helped win him the job. And now his honesty back then can help us evaluate his job. Since he inherited such a terrible roster, there's no way in hell that the 49ers were going to be a winning team that first season, because they didn't install their QB until late in that first season, right? They were planning to install the quarterback in 2018. Jimmy Garoppolo fell into their laps via trade. He started the final 5 games of the year. They won those 5 games, but at the start of 2017, they didn't have a QB yet. Garoppolo tears his ACL in 2018. That sets things back. But by the time they had a healthy QB, 2019, the 49ers went to the Super Bowl. So Shanahan turned this thing around remarkably quickly. Now, the Achilles heel of the Shanahan era has been, fittingly, QB health. It took Shanahan a healthy QB to get to the mountaintop, or close to it, the Super Bowl, and he hasn't had full QB health since then, which has prevented him from returning to that promised land of the Super Bowl. 2020, high ankle sprain for Jimmy Garoppolo prevents the 49ers from making the playoffs. 2021, Garoppolo plays through a torn thumb ligament, torn shoulder situation. I should point to my right shoulder. Both of those injuries happened to his throwing arm. You can't convince me otherwise. I think if Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy in 2021, and Greg Papa, 49ers broadcaster, he wholeheartedly agrees with this. We talked about this a lot. People who know football agree with this. They would have beaten the Rams. It would have been 9 straight wins against the Rams, right? Instead of 8 of 9 games won against the Rams. But Garoppolo wasn't healthy. QB health, befelled the 49ers again that year, or felled the 49ers, I guess I should say that year, like you fell a tree. 2022, obviously, quarterback health or lack thereof is what downed the 49ers. They didn't have a single healthy one by the end of the season. Anyway, the question was, or it wasn't a question, it was probably some stupid comments about Kyle Shanahan not getting the job done. Kyle Shanahan has put the 49ers into excellent position. He turned them around, very, very quickly alongside John Lynch. Now it's up for the 49ers to take that final step. My key for the final step, and I know we're talking about the DB position today. I'm answering questions about everything. My key is the 49ers have to continue bolstering the offensive line. This Super Bowl coming up between Philadelphia and Kansas City, these are the 2 best offensive lines in football, in my humble opinion. I think it's no coincidence that the two best O-lines in football are playing for all the marbles. I think the 49ers improved their O-line pass protection-wise this past year. They've invested in it over the past couple years, but I don't think they were in the league of Philadelphia or Kansas City as far as O-line goes. As an overall team, were they better than Philly? Maybe. I don't know. QB got hurt. Why did the QB get hurt? Well, 49ers didn't protect him well enough. So ultimately, your offensive line has to be on par with the league's best, I think, for you to have a realistic chance to win the Super Bowl. And I think that's Shanahan and Lynch's next homework assignment as they continue marching toward a Super Bowl title for the 49ers. All right, what about the defensive line here? Go for broke asks, maybe the 49ers will go for broke for Brian Burns. Do the 49ers have any capital to attempt to trade for Brian Burns if he's made available? Well, not this year. I mean, they're not going to be able to trade a first, a second, or even a higher third-round pick this season. You might have to, it might have to involve a trade of a player on an expiring deal, but it would have to be somebody promising. You look at Kinlaw, yes, he hasn't produced up to a first-round standard, but a lot of that is the knee injury. Only 1 year left on his deal. Would he provide any value in a trade situation? It's hard to say that he would, so it's tough. Brian Burns has 1 year left on his contract. The 49ers looking for a bookending edge rusher to Nick Bosa. They don't have much draft capital to be able to do it. Well, we'll see, maybe they can use some future picks. They can go into FM picks mode, which they already went into a little bit with Christian McCaffrey. And they could rely on the fact they have a boatload of these comp picks, all acquired through the minority hiring incentive, stocked up in the middle of the draft. And the 49ers believe in their scouting department more than any team. So that's what the 49ers can rely on. They can, they have to rely on their scouting department. They have to rely on the fact that they've been good in later rounds, and they have to just suck it up and say, we don't have much first, second round draft capital coming up in the near future because we traded it for guys like Christian McCaffrey, which is obviously worth it. And they're probably going to have to, rely on a world where it's not easy to trade for a player like Brian Burns. But maybe they could scrounge up enough draft capital. Steve Wilks coached Brian Burns. Steve Wilks has said good stuff about Brian Burns. We shall see what the situation is. Okay, so Brian Burns would be a hell of an addition to the 49ers defensive line. Cully Young, same kind of thing, talking about Daron Payne. All these guys would cost a lot. Premium defensive linemen cost a lot. These edge rushers, the quality ones don't grow on trees, and they usually don't last until the third round. You can get steals at most positions late, and they're, with regularity even. 49ers have been really good at doing that. But just think about it. They really haven't gotten big-time D-line or offensive line steals later in the draft, with the one exception being DJ Jones as a sixth rounder. But as far as edge rushers go, it's tough to find a really quality, ready-made edge rusher lower than the first round. Even Drake Jackson, second rounder, who people talked about as a first-round talent, ran into the rookie wall this past year. So that's where not having that draft capital is going to make it really challenging for the 49ers. But again, the reason they don't have it is because they traded for Christian McCaffrey. CMC's on this team now. I think he was well worth the picks that the 49ers dealt. Will Moseley come back, or is he destined to head to Houston? Probably depends on who pays more. Coming off the ACL, though, might be a chance for the 49ers here to swoop in at more of a flyer rate. We'll see. The 49ers, when they were still a bad team, signed an injured cornerback, Richard Sherman, coming off an injury, coming off an Achilles, to help install the system. Sherman didn't participate through the offseason program. He didn't show up until training camp in pads. He was acting like a coach during the OTAs in that 2018 season. But the 49ers, when they were still a struggling team, didn't mind paying somebody coming off an injury to help install the system as a veteran presence. DeMeco Ryans might want that in Houston from Emmanuel Moseley. Plus, Mosley's a lot younger than Sherman. ACL, probably not as potentially debilitating as an Achilles. So there might be a market for Emmanuel Moseley, and it might be in Houston. And if that's the case, the 49ers are going to have to think long and hard about how far of a bidding war they want to get into with Houston. And a lot of that's going to depend on their belief in Deommodore Lenoir, their belief in Ambry Thomas turning things around this year. I come from the school of thought that you can't possibly have enough good cornerbacks. We saw the tragedy of running out of healthy cornerbacks and cornerbacks. We saw quarterbacks too this year, but running out of healthy corners, that was a huge issue for the 49ers in 2021. They run out of corners in 2021. They run out of quarterbacks in 2022. And it really hurt both of those seasons. JC Maxwell, you always know I'm going to answer good Fresno State questions. Shout out to the 559. Any thought of Jake Haener from Fresno State? Will he be available as a third-round comp pick? Would he fit into the QB plans as QB3? Possibly, because Haener, that guy's tough as shit. I saw him play a game last year. I think they beat UCLA. They're at the Rose Bowl. He's just staggering, barely able to walk up and down the field, and he beats them in the shootout with like a last-minute drive and a touchdown pass. Maybe they set up a field goal. I think they actually scored a touchdown there in the last minute. He's tough. And the one thing that the 49ers are looking for out of quarterbacks is the ability to, hang in there in the pocket, be tough. Jimmy Garoppolo was tough, right? He was able to take those hits against cover zero and deliver. Brock Purdy, tough, able to take hits against cover zero and deliver. Trey Lance, we haven't seen him pass as much yet, but I think the 49ers believe he has that in him too. I think he's tough. I think, tough and getting hurt, those are two different things, right? Tough in the form of courageous. All these 49ers QBs have been courageous. CJ Beathard was courageous. That guy, they're beating him like he was getting whipped in the pocket. There was a game where he got hit 16 times, which is unheard of back when the 49ers didn't have much of an offensive line in 2017. He ultimately got hurt, but he was tough. So Shanahan loves tough quarterbacks. Jake Haener is tough. So if the 49ers want to bring in a rookie, might be a little bit of a project just because he's a rookie, they'll bring him in. Maybe they bring him in as the fourth QB this year, right? Because, you look at this, and in the case of somebody like Haener, here, let me plug in I don't want this internet to be slow for you guys. I think that I don't have my Ethernet plugged in, and I said it gave me a little slow warning. So give it a second here. Let's reload here. And I think this should be more crisp and clear, just in case it wasn't. I totally forgot that I didn't have the Ethernet plugged in. But in the case of Jake Haener, I think that you'd be looking at picking up a rookie to bolster the quarterback room. I think that the way that the quarterback room is set up right now for the 49ers dictates that they have to sign a bridge veteran to be a stopgap, not to be the starter, but to be insurance in case you see Trey Lance go down, because Brock Purdy is going to be hurt and he's going to be out for about 6 months. That's the news that we got today. So you don't want to roll through this entire offseason with an injured Brock Purdy, a rusty Trey Lance, and then have a rookie Jake Haener come in late April, early May after the draft. I think you want a veteran presence in that room. So I think it's a given they're going to sign a veteran presence, but I don't think that would preclude them from using a mid-round draft pick on somebody like Jake Haener. Why not? What's there not to like about Jake Haener, who obviously has those Bay Area ties with his mom, Julie, is a news anchor for KTVU Fox Channel 2. All right, good questions. Good questions all around the board. We are plugged into the Ethernet. Sorry if it got a little slow there for a second. Give me a thumbs up if the connection looks good right now. That'd make me feel a lot better. We'll go to another question here. Sean Jeffries, how much will Moseley get per year on the open market? Is Verrett done, or will he return on another 1-year deal? I don't know about Jason Verrett. I haven't heard an update. I wouldn't blame him if he was done. That's after he had another devastating season-ending injury. Moseley, per year on the open market, he's younger than Verrett, and he's many fewer injuries into this whole cycle than Verrett. But when Verrett tore his ACL a couple years back, he came back on a prove-it deal. It was essentially the league minimum. As a younger corner, will Moseley make more? Maybe. Maybe it won't be 1-point-something million. Maybe it will be 2 or 3. But I don't think it can be all that much more, just because it is an ACL at a position that requires so much short area quickness, and you got to see how he recovers. That being said, it could be more if a team like Houston wants Emmanuel Moseley for his playbook expertise. I think that's one of the that's one of the things that you absolutely have to consider is that Houston might want Emmanuel Moseley to help them bolster their football team's knowledge of DeMeco Ryans' system. Do I miss In-N-Out during the offseason? Yeah. So two things. One, I'm back in California quite frequently. It's going to be about a month here that I'm not there, but then there's an engagement party, my engagement party on March 11th that I have to be at. Free agency. I'm going to drop by the building probably at some point in March. Then I'll be back around the draft. We're going to go to Turks and Caicos in April before the draft. That's going to be a whole lot of fun out in the Caribbean. Never been to the Caribbean. It's going to be cool. But anyway, like there's these like spaced out visits to California and then OTAs and rookie minicamp and all that. That's in May and June. So I get my dose of In-N-Out. The other big news is that In-N-Out Burger has announced expansion here to Nashville, to Tennessee. So you're going to have a distribution center here. They picked Nashville as a location, and they're going to have restaurants. In-N-Out doesn't own a freezer outside of what they need for milkshakes. They don't put their meat in a freezer. So all of their stores have to be within a reasonable driving distance of the distribution center to keep the meat fresh. And they obviously decided to do Texas. It's really popular in Texas now. I think the Whataburger In-N-Out debate is solved by the fact that nobody waits in line for Whataburger, but people wait in line for In-N-Out in Texas. They've betrayed their own burger chain in Texas. And I'm pretty sure they're going to betray Chick-fil-A here in Tennessee when In-N-Out comes. My fiance swears by Chick-fil-A. I swear by In-N-Out. I know they're two different things. One is beef, one is chicken. But I think In-N-Out kicks Chick-fil-A's ass every which way to Sunday. So In-N-Out's going to come here, and just watch. It's going to be much longer lines at In-N-Out Burger than a place like Chick-fil-A. Yes, smash that like button. And yes, 35,000 subs. We hit it last night. It's good. Probably going to get to 40,000 quick if we continue at this rate. Second jersey is going to be coming up, but we haven't had a chance yet to get the second jersey back there. It's sitting right here on the ground. I just haven't had a chance to mount it up on the wall yet. We've already had a few correct guesses, but I'm going to try to shout out to some of the people that guessed correctly, especially the first guy that guessed correctly. If you can guess who the jersey is going to be. It's one of Joe Montana's former teammates, but not from the 49ers or the Chiefs is your hint. In-N-Out is open on Sunday. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Of course, they'd be interested in Daron Payne. I don't know if it would happen, though. They want to bolster that defensive line any way they can. I'm glad that you agree on In-N-Out against Chick-fil-A. Good stuff. Very good stuff. Okay, hold on. I'm checking one thing here. Yeah, Emmanuel Moseley could go to New York to play for the Jets. It's a problem for the 49ers. They've got all these disciples of their old system everywhere. And you have Robert Saleh, DeMeco Ryans around the league, Mike McDaniel elsewhere, but especially the defensive-minded guys might like 49ers defensive players. But it would be evocative of Richard Sherman's departure from the 49ers to the Richard Sherman's departure from the Seahawks to the 49ers. Even though he was a free agent too. He'd just gotten cut, but he was injured that offseason. The 49ers can't retain McGlinchey. Do they go for a right tackle in the draft or look at free agency? They might like Colton McKivitz if they don't retain McGlinchey. I think you got to go through free agency, though. I don't know if you could get a ready-made right tackle. I think you draft a tackle to groom him. But again, edge rusher and tackle, those are tough positions to get ready-made guys later than the first, or pushing it would be the second round. Jennings is an exclusive rights free agent. They're not going to lose him if they don't want to lose him. He can only negotiate with the 49ers, and they can offer him a very low salary. They could offer him a higher salary to keep him around for a longer period of time. I would do that with Jennings because I think he's a dog. But don't worry about Juwan Jennings. That I've even included him on my roster cheats because I think it's a given that he's going to be back with the 49ers next year. Exclusive rights free agent. That is even more of a lock than a restricted free agent. All right, here's a guess. Tim Brown, 87 Heisman from Notre Dame, but you're not sure if he overlapped with Joe at Notre Dame. Well, if he was the 87 Heisman, just think about it. Joe Montana in the 1981 season won the Super Bowl for the 49ers. So I don't think they were teammates at Notre Dame. Oh, the Niners heading to Cleveland next year? I want to check out Cleveland. I'm sure nobody has ever said that, but I have said it now. I haven't been to Cleveland. I would like to see it. So yeah, let's go check it out. Let's see Cleveland next year. Marcus Allen, what are you talking about? Marcus Allen went to USC. That's blasphemy for anybody in the USC Notre Dame rivalry. Crazy. JC Maxwell having a laugh at that one. Somebody the other day guessed Marcus Allen. I was like, whoa. Hold on. He's a bitter rival with Notre Dame. Bitter rival. Oh, you didn't hear the clue. All right. I get it. The clue is it's a former teammate of Joe Montana's but not from the Chiefs or the 49ers. All right, guys. It is about time for me to get going. So anyway, make sure that you check out the piece. It is up on the screen right now. State of the 49ers, the DB edition. You've got all these cool charts about how the secondary has been performing. There's how the pass rush has been performing, and there obviously is the depth chart. So check it out. I'm copying and pasting the link. I'm putting it into the comment section. And why don't you all have a fantastic Wednesday. 47-minute show, just the way that we drew it up. Everybody take care.